Hello, hello. Oh, so tonight I'm actually gonna
The final
talk a
price
little bit
was
about myself
4,700.
and just kind of tell you where I'm from and what I do at Hot Wheels and stuff like that. So actually, I need to go start the computer. So just a second.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. See you. Okay.
All right, just to let you guys know what I do at Hot Wheels. So my name is Dwayne Vance, and I'm one of the design managers at Hot Wheels. So it's me and Craig Coleman, and then we report to Jimmy Lou. I think a lot of you guys know who Jimmy Lou is. But so I'm in charge of extensions, NFTs, and also what they call Silver Series now, which is what they were calling mid-tier. So it's kind of the Hot Wheels that they sell in between mainline and premium. So my job there is to kind of oversee those groups, but I still do a lot of design work as a manager. So I'll design a lot of like casting. So a lot of you know that I designed the Cowabunga, and that's like in the RLC line. And I've also done a lot of mainline stuff. And I'll kind of tell you my story as I go along here. So this is my family here. This is my wife, Christy, my son, Soren, Ryder, my daughter, Sophie, and my son, Gage. So we're a family of 6. And my son, Gage, is actually interested in design as well, so he's starting to draw a lot like I have. And he's kind of taking up a little bit of a career. You know, I don't know if he'll be at Hot Wheels eventually. He might be. But it's a possibility. You go ahead and hit the next slide. So this is me. I had a real passion for cars as a little kid, and this is in El Paso, Texas, is where I grew up at, and I stayed there until I was about 3 years old, and then moved to California, and then I've lived there since, basically. Next slide. So this is me. Obviously, you guys can see here I'm playing with Hot Wheels. So I had a passion as a kid. I loved to play with them, and I collected them, and I had lots of friends with Hot Wheels too, so we would train them and collect them as well as a young age. You can go to the next slide. And so this is kind of a funny picture. Can you believe it? This is the only picture I could find as a kid of my restored Mustang. That's my Mustang. I looked forever for a picture of my Mustang that my dad and I restored. So it's a 1967 Mustang with a 289 in it. And I rebuilt the engine twice in it. And can you believe it? I didn't have any pictures of this thing at all. And so I hit all my friends up and I said, hey, do you guys have any pictures of this Mustang? Because I had another friend that had a 69 Fairlane, another friend that had a 64.5 Mustang. We used to go to car shows all the time, and I'm like, somebody's got to have a picture of this thing. And so all my friends told me, they said, you know, we never worried about pictures back then. We were just concerned about buying parts for our car. And that was true. None of us carried a camera around with us. We were trying to save money for parts for our car. Next slide. So I'm kind of fast forwarding real quick to kind of give you guys the quick story. So I ended up going to Art Center. And Art Center is kind of, there's 2 schools in the U.S. that teach car design. So it's Art Center and CCS. And CCS is in Detroit, and Art Center is in California, in Pasadena. And so I really followed my passion. I loved design, and I got into design partly because of Star Wars, believe it or not. I loved all the sci-fi and fantasy and stuff. And as you guys can probably see in a lot of my design, I still carry that throughout a lot of my designs. But I followed a career kind of into Art Center, and I graduated from Art Center. And while I was at Art Center, I actually did an internship at Ford over in Dearborn. And I worked in the truck studio, and also what they call the Advanced Concept Studio. So I worked on F-150s, and I also worked on a little bit of the GT40 project that they did way back when. So it was a ton of fun working there. Go ahead, next slide. So when I graduated Art Center, believe it or not, I didn't go to work for a car company. I actually went to work for Troy Lee Designs, which they're a big motocross company in the U.S. And they do, and he's well known for painting a lot of like race car driver helmets. That's kind of how he got his start, and even motocross helmets and stuff. And then eventually became a big motocross brand. So kind of to rewind, when I was in high school, I actually approached Troy Lee, and I asked him, I said, hey, I'm really interested in design. I'd like to work for you. And so he had me come in, and I kind of talked with his artists and stuff and got to know him a little bit. And then kind of lost touch with Troy Lee Designs. But then when I was getting ready to graduate college, Troy Lee actually came through the college and saw all my work on the wall, and he's like, hey, I remember you. And he goes, hey, do you want to come to work for me? And I was like, heck yeah. And so while I was there, I actually got to work on a lot of cool projects, and one being this Le Mans race team for Flying Lizard. And I got to do their livery for the 24 Hours of Le Mans racing. So this was one of the liveries I did. And then it was, so that's the real car up there on the right. And then the one on the lower right was featured in Forza Motorsport in the video games. So, next slide. This here, so eventually kind of fast forward, I ended up at Hot Wheels in the early 2000s. I got a picture of me right there. You can kind of see me there. But, you know, a lot of this crew is like, you've got like, I don't know if many of you remember some of the old time crew, but you've got like Nathan Proch, you've got Fraser Campbell, which is back, he's back at Hot Wheels, over there on the left. Phil Rillman, Mark Jones, he just recently retired. And you got Van up here in the corner. So a lot of these guys still work there. And then Rob actually is back with us, that's kind of right behind me. Terry Thean-Persidi. You got Mike Peralta there, and then you got Larry Wood over there. So I got to work with a really awesome group of guys at Hot Wheels. And I ended up at Hot Wheels back in the early 2000s because I was working at Troy Lee Designs. And Troy started doing Hot Wheel, like these special Hot Wheels, which are worth a lot of money now today even, because they were really hard to get a hold of. And so Nathan Proch, I actually went back to Art Center to learn about more 3D modeling, and he was in my class, and I didn't know who he was at the time. And Nathan Proch said to me, he goes, hey, do you have any friends that are interested in car design at all? And I was like, well, I'm kind of interested in car design. That's kind of what I went to school for. And he goes, yeah, he goes, I'm the design director from Hot Wheels. And he goes, I'm looking for people that are interested. And I'm like, I'm interested. So that's how I ended up with my first job at Hot Wheels. And I got hired by Nathan Proch there. Next slide. And so this is just more of the crew kind of during that time when I was there. Next slide. And I got to work on accelerators while I was there. And I actually got to work on the show, and I got to work on the RD09, which is the kind of leader, the bad guy leader of that show, which was a lot of fun. And I got to like really inject a lot of story ideas and stuff while they were working on it. And eventually a lot of the stuff that we were planning for accelerators became what they called Battle Force 5, if you're familiar with that. You can go to the next slide. And so eventually I did leave Hot Wheels again, and I ended up leaving partly because I had real little kids, and I lived really far away at the time. So I kind of wanted to go back, like closer to home. So I ended up taking a job back at Troy Lee Designs, but then I ended up only staying there for a couple more years, and I started my own design business. And I started designing for all kinds of companies, and I was doing stuff for motocross, for video games, for movies, TV shows, a whole bunch of stuff. And during that time, I actually created a book. I created 2 books. And it was called Master Chicken Scratch. And it featured me and several other hot rod artists in it. And I ended up traveling to all these different hot rod shows. to sell my books, my t-shirts, and artwork and stuff. And during that time, I actually met Jay Leno, and he saw my book and actually invited me to be on his show on Jay Leno's Garage. So that's me on the right-hand corner. And then these guys up here are all the ones featured in my book. So there's like Max Grundy, Mark Jones, John Fry, Tom Fritz, and oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. Anyways, it doesn't matter. He's not here, so he won't be offended. All right, next slide. And which, believe it or not, my book is still for sale for $19.99, plus shipping and handling. So this is just kind of a broad scope of kind of like all the different artists that are in the book. And then it also came with, at the time it was kind of relevant, it came with a DVD in it that actually presented on how to draw cars and how the whole process is of drawing cars and hot rods and things like that. Next slide. So this is my car at home. This is my current project. It's a 1967 Bonneville, and that's my rendering up there. And this is pretty much the current state still. I've been kind of working on this car for the last 10 years. So hopefully I can get that thing. My goal is to really tackle this next year and to finish this thing. Next slide. And so, long story short, I ended up back at Hot Wheels in 2019. Brian Benedict reached out to me. He knew that I was doing freelance for lots of companies and stuff, and he said, hey, are you interested in coming back to Hot Wheels? And I gotta say, it was the one job I missed a lot. Like, I really loved working on Hot Wheels. And so I said, yeah, I'm interested in coming back. So I came in, I went through all the interviews again, and the funny thing was everyone knew who I was and what I'd been doing. So it was just kind of a formality for me to go through all the interviews and stuff again. But then I ended up back there, and obviously Ryu was still alive during that time. Jerry, and the guy in the middle there is Bucky Lasik, and he's a famous skateboarder. And he's a big Subaru guy. He's rebuilt like all these really cool Subarus. And then Charlie's on my team, then me, and then Mike McClone is on my team, and then Phil over here on the far, or to my far right. So that was just a picture of all of us getting back together again. It was kind of cool. All right, next slide. And so this is just kind of some of the stuff that I do back at home. I actually ride mountain bikes a lot. I got a battle scar kind of right before I came out. I crashed. Like literally the day before I'm heading off to Malaysia, I wiped out. But so anyways, yeah, this is kind of a hobby that I do at home. And the next slide. And that hobby kind of turned into a big passion where I became a coach for our city team at home. And my son is right there in the red jersey, and he started racing mountain bikes kind of all over the U.S. So we were traveling to Utah, Arkansas, all over Southern California, Northern California, and we raced all over. And then I also became the head coach of what they call Corona Composite, which is our city team. And we actually traveled all over Southern California, and this is us up there. Actually, we won first place and second place several times, like out of all of Southern California in the races. So it's been a lot of fun. Actually, just this year was my last year to do this, but it's been a blast mountain biking and getting out there with all the kids and stuff. So next slide. So just to kind of continue into Hot Wheels, this was a slide I put together of several castings I did. I've probably done, I think I counted over 100 plus castings now at this point. So when I was brought into Hot Wheels originally, I actually started in the character car group. So you kind of see some of these where that one looks like Appa from Airbender, and then Aang, and then Gudetama down here. And then I designed tons of character cars. And that's kind of a series that's going to be going away soon from Mattel. I think a lot of people know that now. But that was a lot of fun to work on, so I moved into other things now. So, but all the kind of the ones way over to the left were kind of my early castings that I did, like way back in the early 2000s, and then kind of over to the newer ones over here to the right. This like lower one down here is a casting that's only available in the pullback segment, and it's like this real kind of heavily modified 69 Mustang with the opening hood. Then you got the Cowabunga in the middle, Fusion Busta, and this one over here is called Tracked Wagon, and it's loosely based on the Travis Pastrana wagon that he drives, the Subaru wagon. All right, next slide. And so this is just some of my actual artwork that I draw at Hot Wheels. So that was kind of the original hot rod for Fusion Busta. The one down below is Bugcation, and then obviously Cowabunga. This was my dinner car in Atlanta. So there's a lot of Easter eggs on this. Like it says Vance Speed Shop on the side, which is my last name. And then on top, the actual luggage area has all my kids' initials, my wife's initials, and all kinds of stuff. And you might ask, like the surfboard, I put the P40 Warhawk Tiger Shark mouth on there, which is, I just have a huge passion for World War II planes, and it plays a big inspiration in a lot of the cars I draw and how I do it and stuff like that. And then some other Easter eggs on the car that you can't see here is I actually feature, oh no, I guess it is, it's on the surfboard. So you have my last name, Vance, in red there. And then you have the chicken claw, which is holding 2 pencils in the middle. So that's actually from my Masters of Chicken Scratch book that I did. And then the flame was just kind of like a tribute to returning to Hot Wheels and stuff like that. And then the skull is actually kind of a small storyline that some people follow that I'm writing that's called Screaming Skulls. And it's this kind of storyline that I created that I draw to like when I'm drawing stuff outside of Hot Wheels. And what it is this storyline of these underground kind of like cyberpunk gang that builds these like real crazy cars. and if you follow my Instagram feed, I actually tell the story in my Instagram feed. And so I'll feature that skull like on a lot of the Hot Wheels that I designed, and you'll see that kind of all over the place. All right, next slide. And so this is actually one of my favorite castings that I recently have done that's in the main line. So it's the 68 Custom Camaro. You know, the features, it's all chopped up. It's kind of taken a lot of inspiration from today's car culture of chopping up stuff, turbos coming out of the side, and then also just kind of changing the whole body form and making it more racy and kind of to today's standards and stuff. And then it features these kind of like vertical wings in the back. I didn't put on a typical spoiler because I wanted it to be a little different. And so yeah, that's one of the coolest designs it's one of my favorite designs that I've done recently. And again, you can also see the skull on the side. And then the Chinese characters that says speed as well. I kind of use that throughout a lot of my designs to kind of signify like a lot of the stuff that I work on. All right, next slide. And so this is actually going to be one of my sign sheets that I'll be signing here at the Art of Speed at the booth tomorrow. And this was kind of not really a new line, but to kind of inject a lot of freshness into a line called Track Fleet. And so what it is a lot of it's been focused on a lot of trucks with trailers and stuff like that, but we wanted to expand it out. And we changed the name from, used to be called Track and Trucks, and now we call it Track Fleet, to kind of do some things like this, so it's not just semi-trucks. So I did this, I actually was inspired by an image that I saw, I think on Speed Hunters a while ago, that actually showed a Volvo pulling the trailer. And it was this like drift style Volvo. And I thought, how cool would that be to do a die cast of that? So this was our idea to do that. So I drew this sketch up, and then we ended up making the casting, which I have sitting down here on the table that you can see later. All right, next slide. And so this here, a lot of this is all just my artwork. So believe it or not, I actually draw outside of Hot Wheels. So obviously I do a lot of drawing for work, but I do a lot of drawing outside of work for fun, to just inspire myself, and I try to get my team to do the same thing. And we actually do this group. I usually have it once or twice a month, and it's called Design Jams. And all of us, as a bunch of designers, sit around at our table at Hot Wheels, and we come up with one word, and we kind of share the word, like whatever it is. From, like, one guy did, I'm trying to think of some words. Like, I think the first word we did was like cyberpunk. So then we've also done like shoot, what else did we do? We did one where some guy said, "Oh, brother," and so we had to draw to the word brother. But anyway, so some of this stems off of that, and it has nothing to do with Hot Wheels, but it's all kind of design inspired. That does inspire Hot Wheels later on. Next slide. And so a lot of this kind of has come from that. So I love to draw the cyberpunk style stuff that's real wild. Like, this is like a deconstructed race car where the whole front end is like ripped off. And like, say the guy sits in a pod and drives, you know, through a screen. And then I've got like traditional hot rod stuff that's got like airplane engine inspired stuff. And then obviously real wild hot rods. And then that sketch above is the one that became Fusion Busta later on. All right, next slide. Same here. These are just a lot of sketches that I do during our design jams. So I just included some of that stuff in here. All right, next slide. Same thing here. So this was like inspiration for the Devancinator. That's a mainline Hot Wheel. And then sketches over there, like, I just think of stuff if it was really chopped up, or, you know, kind of like Japanese muscle, or even taking old 60s cars kind of down below and like chopping them up as well. Like, what would that look like? That one down there is loosely based on like a Daytona Cobra. All right, next slide. And then I have a huge passion for robots too. So I got to visit Japan last month, which was a total blast for me. Got to look at all the Gundam stuff and, you know, all the other 5-star stories. You know, anything that's robot related I love. So robots play a big part, and also so do World War II planes play a big part into a lot of my design inspiration when I design Hot Wheels. And I think that's it. Yes. So thank you to everyone. I just want to just a shout out to Asip. He's not there anymore. But to Vera, thank you for arranging for everything for me to come out here. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the hospitality and being here in Malaysia. It's super cool to see this passion for diecast, and just to be here and to get to meet all you fans. So I look forward to meeting more of you and coming by and saying hi. And I get to sign a bunch of stuff tomorrow, I know. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.